the head of the State Fiscal Service of Ukraine, and Nelia Privalova, the Director of Department of Methodological Work on Taxation.
Briefing will be dedicated to the discussion of changes to electronic administration of VAT, and with us will be Pavlo, Sheremeta, the Minister of Economic Development and Commerce of Ukraine, Igor Bilous, the Head of State Fiscal Service of Ukraine, and Nelia Privalova, Director of Department of Methodological Work on questions of taxing of the State Fiscal Service of Ukraine.
Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. The Minister of Finance, of course, had to be here, but I understand he's not in Kiev today. We've learned from this center that there is a big interest to that topic, and I invited my colleagues. They agreed, and I would like to thank them for that. And we are here to answer your questions. And I personally understand your interest, because during my visits to different parts of Ukraine, during my meetings with the entrepreneurs, managers, owners, students, VAT topic was the first one. Sometimes I would ask, do you have any questions not on VAT? There were no hands raised. Every other question was, when will you cancel VAT? When will you improve administering VAT? We, as you know, the Ministry of Economic Development, we set up a working group involving public civil society. The main part of the work has been finished. We have some discussions between ourselves, and that's normal because different ministers are caring about different things. The Minister of Finance is thinking about this year budget and next year budget. The Minister of Economic Development is thinking about development. We're looking from different sides, and in the atmosphere of respect and trust, we find common solution. And that is electronic administering of VAT. That's one of the first things we can talk about, which will not allow in the nearest future to abuse around that tax. You know that the colleagues from Fiscal Service know much more. I will immediately give the floor to them. Igor Bilous, the head of the State's Fiscal Service. I would like to say that the law that was voted for yesterday, that's the first step on the way to systemic reforming of the tax system. That is the first step out of all the initiatives that we would like to submit, and the second one will be reforming the single social contribution, and this step will be made soon in the middle of August. We are almost ready with the draft. We are finalizing it with the Ministry of Social Policy and Ministry of Finance, and we'll submit that initiative because we believe after the VAT, this initiative is number 2 in the country for business and development. First of all, VAT. First of all, the preconditions for introducing the system of electronic administering of VAT are the drawbacks in the existing system, which are, first of all, the existing system allows to avoid paying the tax duties, and that is the problem that existed from the very beginning when the law was passed in 1997. The fictitious credit on VAT is formed via tax pits, you know this word. In the result, the VAT doesn't get it to the budget, and such schemes are the source of the cash which feed the shadow economy, and that also concerns a single social contribution. Also, in perfect system of VAT administering, helps the system of corruption. Combating this phenomena requires a lot of funding and is not effective. The fictitious companies basically are avoiding the judiciary. The system is not perfect from the point of view of law enforcement bodies, and it has to be addressed differently. The shadow economy, the market of tax optimizers create uneven conditions for taxpayers who have to carry all the tax burden. To liquidate the tax pits and to resolve all these problems which have been accumulated for years, for dozens of years, I would say, we suggest such a systemic solution, introducing the system of electronic administering. These are not VAT accounts, which includes three major elements. First of all, single electronic register of tax bills of lading in the bank. From then the bank of VAT will be open, and it will be the virtual organization. Introducing such a system will allow to make impossible to create the tax credit and avoid getting illegal VAT reimbursement from the budget. That is a big victory because VAT is the main tax for forming the budget in Ukraine. There will be the shadow economy in the country will be reduced. The state will not have to pay a lot of money for VAT administering, and it will help to get the VAT to the state budget. Now, 40% of all taxes account for VAT tax, and I believe that the potential of that tax hasn't been depleted yet. And in the result, the pressure on business will be reduced, that there will be less human factor and corruption. The number of inspections will be reduced, especially inspection along the whole chain of supply. Basically, introducing this mechanism, we will resolve many problems. We will shorten the number of criteria for automatic budgetary reimbursement, and this will allow to reimburse automatically for to investors and importers, and this will be happening 1 month earlier than now. Then reporting, the main rules of accounting for VAT will be preserved. The system of administering is the following. To put it in simple words, automatic accounting for sums paid of paid VAT, automatic free opening of accounts for payers, also putting all the tax bills of lading into one database and registering them in the single register. To register them, the taxpayer should have enough tax credit, which is confirmed by the registered in the single register bills of ladings. If there's not enough sum of credit, the payer has to add money in the system of electronic administering of the tax. On the basis of tax return or from the account of electronic account, it will be reimbursed to the budget, to the current account. That's briefly about the mechanism, briefly about advantages. As you know, the law will become effective from January 2015, and now we have time for a wide scale promotion campaign. We will have a press conference in Interfax on Monday, and we'll be explaining this mechanism, we'll be explaining all the advantages, we'll be answering all the questions. I'm sure there will be many questions. I believe that's the first step to systemic reform. The second step will be single social contribution, and there will be more steps made. These are practical things which are directed not to improve or worsen certain sector of economy. That's systemic reform, which finally will change the whole system to the better, and more than 40% will add of taxes to the budget. Nela Privalova participated directly in this work. She's the head of the team. If you have some technical questions, you are welcome to ask them. I know the topic is complicated. Not everyone understands that. Then, from the Crisis Media Center, so basically, yesterday the Prime Minister stated that 20 billion are laundered via VAT. So does that mean that what yesterday was passed by the Parliament will allow us to save this 20 billion? All these statistical figures have some preconditions. We calculated that introducing this mechanism will save for the budget minimum 12 billion of VAT. The turnover, about 100 billion, will be channeled to the economy, not to the shadow economy. And I believe that our calculations are conservative, maybe 20 billion of VAT, maybe even more, because a big part of the economy is in shadow, and that law, this mechanism, will not just improve administering, will make it easier for people to conduct business, but will make impossible smuggling, which gets to Ukraine. I'm talking about black smuggling and gray smuggling, when instead of green peas, some different good is imported, which is much more expensive. And then only in the country it's confirmed via the scheme of tax credit, and then these goods get to the shops and we buy it. This will be a big impact on smuggling, and those smugglers who are watching us, they understand perfectly well what I'm talking about. International Department of the Central Councils of Maidan. This topic is not close to Maidan. Why only VAT is returned to agricultural producers, but non-agricultural producers who export their products abroad, it's not paid back. You're wrong in what you've said. Yesterday we closed return of we closed some applications for VAT returns, and among those agricultural producers, metal, steel producers, furniture. We cannot say we cannot say that it's returned only to agricultural producers. They did not reimburse it to traders. Maybe your question is related to the taxation of grain supplies. There are producers, intermediaries, and exporters. There's different approach to these different categories. If there is, if the basically, if when supplying the company is not paying VAT, then they have no right to get VAT reimbursed. but some companies, other companies, irrespective of whether they are agricultural or any other sectors, they have the right for VAT return. If the supply is not imposed by VAT, then there could be no reimbursement.
Добрий день.
Institute of Political and National Studies and Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. If, for example, well, how do you assess the risks of the parliament not supporting your initiatives as to reforming the single social contribution? This will be happening in August. Next voting will be on the 12th, 15th of August. What are the risks if the parliament does not support this initiative? I understand that the tax rate is to be reduced, and if this initiative is not supported, will you introduce some innovations with VAT which are supported by the parliament? And the second one, could you briefly tell us what are the basic steps of tax reform will be implemented? You mentioned two, VAT and the second reduction of the rate of single social contribution. I have not seen a single MP who would tell me that he will not be voting for changes of approaches to single social contribution. Everyone will vote because many of them are businessmen and they understand what it means. The VAT, administering of VAT and the single social contribution are interrelated because the system of SSC stimulates salaries in the envelopes that minimum 20 billion hryvnias in cash a month, which creates demand for cash in the black market. And of course we have all these tax pits and converting centers and so on. And the single social contribution will resolve the problem with the demand. Now everyone supports it. I believe the law is the correct one and quite timely. That's first question. And the second one, the basic steps of reform. We understand what should be the priority, and we are somewhat radical and will continue to be such. The military situation in the country, the reduction of economy, stimulate us to implement radical changes now. And these are not just first two initiatives. The first initiative was the tax compromise. It's still in the parliament. We'll do everything possible for the compromise to be approved because the compromise is directly related to VAT administering and to SSC. Our further initiatives will be directed towards several things. First of all, reduction of number of taxes, simplification of administration, and transparency of the functioning of our system. As to other initiatives, we are planning to suggest the draft law on cash desks besides the small entrepreneurs who are mostly small businessmen, or this group which sells things in the market to ensure further transparency of the system. If you say these are not popular things, but it all depends on what proposal we will submit. The proposal is very good. We're working on that and we'll be promoting it. We have an initiative on increasing the efficiency of tax debt of payment of tax debt, and also excise tax at the regional level, and that goes along with the decentralization. And these are the things that we will be doing in the future, but we need to start thinking about them now. That is done to enhance the attractiveness of the region so that they have more powers to administer. There are many initiatives. There are dozens of them. We work actively with the Ministry of Finance. There are tasks with the new tax code. I want us to finish this year with a reduced number of taxes so that we have only 11, 12 taxes left, and that will lead to simplification in administering and expenditures, administration of expenditures, and in the pressure of business. This is very good for us, for business. We do that in the dialogue with business. Briefly, that's it. And I would like to present more initiatives together with the Ministry of Finance. Thank you. Again, I would like to repeat that on Monday there will be a big press conference, and you will be able to learn more about these new initiatives.